Vinnie Iyer of the Sporting News covers the NFL. We'll get with him, talk about what's going on around the NFL. Vinnie, how you doing today?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Doing pretty good. So, Vinnie, I want to start with the game last night. The Falcons getting that win, obviously, doesn't just eliminate the Packers, but also it puts them in firm control of their own destiny. And actually, if they win out, they could win the division. Talk about how crazy it is, considering that this seems like this Falcons team, they're going by the mode of it's better to be lucky than it is good.
Yeah, I mean, but you look at it, they're right in the same position as last year. The last two games are kind of reversed. If you look at the schedule, it's very similar. Obviously, the teams are much better. Those two teams are playing a lot better. The Saints and Panthers are right there with them for the NFC South title, but it's all right in front of them. They feel confident. They beat the Saints the first time. It's going to be a lot harder the second time on the road, but they can get to this, then they're going to feel very good about their chances at home in Week 17. A lot of close games, but you look at the Falcons, Thursday night, if you start adding it up with the wins over the Lions, the Cowboys, Seahawks, Packers, there's a lot of key wins in there that tells you that if they get in there and they're in a good position, they can be dangerous again, especially if they get in as the NFC South champions, even if that's as the number 4 seed.
How dangerous are the Falcons in the playoffs? Because we've seen this offense, you know, they've been inconsistent this year. Under Steve Sarkisian, it doesn't look like the same offense, the same explosion, the same diversity we saw last year was Kyle Shanahan. And then we know the defense, there was no Desmond Trufant last year for the NFL playoff run. So how dangerous could a playoff Falcons team be in 2017?
Well, if you look at it in the end, if they're the team that gets in of all those teams that are trying to get in at number 6 or number 5, I think you look at that, they have the most experience. All the other teams didn't make the playoffs last year, so it all adds up to that being the most experienced team. They know what it took to get through this tough NFC field to get there. They're just going to have to do it against different teams. Last year it was the Packers mainly in their way, but this year it's different teams. They can get the job done. Like I said, they're still tough in their own conference. They have a lot of key wins there.
Vinny, Nick Costco, thanks for joining us. Switching over to the Philadelphia Eagles right now, they have not regressed in these past couple weeks, but they're now in a position where they have locked up at least the first round bye. They're 12-2, their best record in the NFL, but they're playing with the backup quarterback and a seemingly regressing defense as the way they've played over the past 3 weeks. Do you have any cause for concern for the Eagles going into the final 2 weeks and into the playoffs with their defense playing a bit sloppy? And, of course, they still have Nick Foles at quarterback rather than Carson Wentz.
Well, we'll see how they fare in these last 2 games. They might not have much to play for in Week 17, but this Raiders game, Christmas night, it's a chance to maybe make a statement there, national TV last game of the week. So maybe they'll use that as a get-well game going in. Sometimes you need one of those, especially if you play a division rival that was basically throwing everything at them last week. And the Giants typically have played the Eagles pretty well, so I won't read too much into that particular game, but overall, this team, they can score on anyone. We've seen that in the Rams game, the Giants game. Even if they're behind late, they just have so much offensive potential, and they can still make a lot of defensive stops to the front. I think the secondary has always been an issue this whole season. The key there is just making some big plays like they did with Ronald Darby, even if you're going to give up a few plays.
Now, if you're the Eagles and they have a chance to clinch home field advantage before Monday's game, if the Vikings lose, and they'll go in to week 16 at 12-2 and already locked in the number 1 seed. But if you're Philadelphia, would you even rest the starters at all on Monday? I know you mentioned just now that they can make a statement on national TV on Christmas night against the Raiders to show that they still are for real with a different quarterback and an improving defense. But would you rest these starters at all in these last 2 games, or would you kind of let them go full throttle a bit, maybe until the second half of the final game against the Cowboys before the playoffs?
Well, I think it'd be hard to do that. Also, if you look at the Eagles, who exactly are their starters offensively? They use so many guys in there at this point. You have Zach Ertz and Trey Burton. You've got Torrey Smith, Nelson Aguilar, and all the receivers that they use there. So maybe you'll see a little bit of Mac Hollins. But they've been using the entire bench and running back the whole season. So I think that's the thing is that's why this team is rather healthy, because they have so much depth. They can rotate people. So I think you'd see similar to that. Maybe the starters, quote unquote, play a little less, but they have enough depth there that they can still feel pretty good about a tune-up while resting players. That's the luxury that a lot of other teams do not have.
We're being joined by Vinnie Iyer of the Sporting News here on 97.3 ESPN here on a Tuesday. The Eagles, even if they do get the number 1 overall seed and they have home field advantage, how much of a favorite do you make them, Vinny? Because without Wentz, obviously that is a factor in how a lot of people view this team. The defense has given up 29.3 points over the last 3 weeks. So what kind of favorite do you make them? Like a prohibitive favorite? Do you make them a slight favorite? How do you place them compared to the other teams in the NFC playoff race?
Well, right now I think they would be pretty even with the Vikings as the co-favorites here to me, because you look at the quarterback situation, you could say the same thing about Case Keenum. Not proven in this particular situation. If you look at the two quarterbacks who's played in the playoffs, it's Nick Foles, and he played pretty well a few years ago against the Saints, so he actually has experience there. So when you look at these teams pretty evenly, I'd say that the Eagles have the better all-around offense, Vikings have the better all-around defense, but it's not like they're slouches in trying to make up ground versus the other teams. So they're pretty evenly matched. That'll be a pretty good championship game to get there. But you do worry with those two teams plus the Rams, just because they're going through it for the first time with this kind of crew how they'll fare. So I think that's why I figured a team like Atlanta, if they can get in, going to have some experience, and you know that Drew Brees and Newton have recently been to the Super Bowl as well.
You look at the NFC overall, you mentioned some of those teams, the Saints, Drew Brees, the Falcons, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton of the Panthers. These are all quarterbacks who have led teams to the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, you have guys like Nick Foles, Case Keenum. They got some experience, but it's limited experience in the postseason. And then, of course, you got Jared Goff, who's fresh, basically, fresh at this point in the league. So, at the end of the day, how much do you think the quarterback position is going to affect the playoff scene?
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's been such a quarterback-driven tournament in NFC, but you're going to have maybe the 4 best guys overall. When you look at Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford, you could even put in that group, and maybe Dak Prescott with the way that he played last year, maybe the 4 best, most dangerous guys, maybe not in the tournament. So that opens things up a lot more than usual in this situation. So I think it's definitely wide open. If you get in, even if it's the number 6 versus the number 1, I think it's anybody's NFC, very much like last year when the Falcons were the team that got hot and finished things off.
Vinny, switching over to the AFC now, I mean, you look at the top 2 teams. You have New England and Pittsburgh. Obviously, it was a big game on Sunday for the Patriots winning, whether you agree with how they won or not. They have the inside track now to home field advantage. But the one team I wanted to ask about, because it seems like the Patriots and Steelers are on a collision course for the AFC Championship game, but one team that can kind of spoil the party is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, they have played legit defense, and Blake Bortles all of a sudden is looking like a franchise quarterback over the past couple of weeks. If they finish tied with the Steelers, they get a first-round bye. If the Jaguars actually get a first-round bye and they're the 2 seed in the AFC playoffs, how legit of a team do you think this is to make a run at least to the AFC Championship game, likely against New England?
Well, I think they're pretty scary at this point, because you look at what's happened here in the past few weeks is that the running game has not been just automatic here with Leonard Fournette. He's been hurt for a lot of the stretch. They've been shut down there, but then you have Blake Bortles taking over games. And last week was particularly interesting there with the Texans because Marquise Lee goes down in the game. He already doesn't have Allen Hurns. Allen Robinson is long gone, but he's making it work with Keelan Cole and Jaden Mickens and D.D. Westbrook out there. So a quarterback that can do that with those weapons, I don't care who you're playing. I know the matchups have been pretty good the past few weeks. That's still pretty impressive to go out there and be efficient and protect the ball and put up big numbers as well. He went over 300 yards in the game where they were in control for most of it. So when you look at Blake Bortles, he's on fire. I think the key is, can he keep it up? We've seen these 4 or 5 game stretch from him for the past 2 seasons that have been very good. Then he'll go back on a cold streak. So I think he's a big question mark, but I keep saying when you look at the Jacksonville defense, how good they are, I think the part of what Denver did well, Seattle did well on the way to the Super Bowl, and you look at the way that Bortles is playing, I think he's a much better quarterback than that combination of Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler were a few years ago.
Now, in the AFC, it seems to be top-heavy, as I mentioned before, with the Patriots and the Steelers and possibly even now Jacksonville. Kansas City, they had a bad rut in the middle of the year, but they have won 2 in a row now. They're 8-6. They're back in front in their division. but you also have teams behind them in the wild card spots right now in Tennessee and Buffalo. In my opinion, I don't think Tennessee is a great 8-6 team at all. Buffalo is kind of hanging in there, and Baltimore is hit or miss, and you still have the Chargers looking around. I mean, do we expect any of these teams below New England and Pittsburgh and maybe even Jacksonville to make any noise in the AFC playoffs? And if you had to pick one, I mean, who would you pick to even make noise after the top three?
Yeah, I think it's a close tie for me, but I think both of these teams could very well get in with the way things line up. But the teams I would not want to see there, and it's probably going to happen at least with one, is the Ravens and the Chargers. I just don't want to see those teams because when you look at defense and quarterbacks that are kind of gunslingers and kind of very gritty, may not always be pretty with their results, but Joe Flacco and Philip Rivers at least are going to hang in there, have a chance to make the big plays. We know Flacco's got hot for the Super Bowl. You know, Rivers is probably an outlier with his career that has never been there. So when you look at those teams and their defenses, and the Titans, you're right. I don't think anyone's going to be afraid of them if they limp into the playoffs the way they're going right now. And that's not a certainty with the Rams and the Jaguars in their final few games. But look at the Chargers. I think they can be very dangerous. They do have an excellent running back, and Melvin Gordon for that time of year. Keenan Allen can be a difference maker in a game like that. If you look at the Ravens, they're getting the job done. Their defense is playing old school. Alex Collins has been excellent out of the backfield. So these two teams are getting complete. They've used the season to kind of find themselves, and you see the results here. Good coaching on both of those teams.
We're talking with Vinnie Iyer, writer for the Sporting News. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Iyer, VINNIEIYER. Vinnie, one of the news stories that came out of Sunday has been covered the last couple of days has been Jerry Richardson deciding to sell the Panthers, and considering the disgusting details that came out from the SI article that was out there, you know, this really feels a lot like a Donald Sterling kind of situation, a guy that, you know, his secrets are kind of hid for a long time, and now he's just this old guy that nobody really wants around because he's basically just going to make everybody else look bad. We've seen owners and get in trouble before. Do you think that this situation with Jerry Richardson is isolated to him, or could we also see other things unearthed about other NFL owners?
Well, definitely they got to be worried about this because it's just the culture, and you know this. A lot of the things we've seen, it's people in power and people with a lot of money and people with the ability to influence people's careers. So, I mean, you've seen this in other walks of life. So let's hope not. Let's hope this is just an isolated incident, and let's hope we don't hear more and more about owners and organizations like that, because that would be very disappointing, obviously, to hear that. But right now, I wouldn't say it's widespread. I think you have to look individually at the different owners, and right now, yeah, it doesn't look good. He's got to move on, but I think it's the best thing for the NFL to expedite getting a new ownership in there.
It looks like we're talking about the billions range, obviously, you know, somewhere between 1.5 and 3 billion sale for the Panthers, and the Panthers, they're not even one of the most valuable franchises in all of the NFL. What does it say about the NFL as a whole that despite, you know, the conversation about the controversy with Goodell and the ratings conversations and all the things that are going around, that there's a team, the Panthers, are not even one of the 10 most valuable franchises in the league, and they could possibly sell for $2 to $3 billion.
Yeah, that just shows you that the exaggeration of maybe the NFL being in control of the clients, because in the end, it's more profit than ratings, and that's definitely been keep rolling in there. So what I like to see is maybe if it's not Diddy, but maybe a minority owner of this for the first time in the NFL. That would be groundbreaking, and it would be interesting to see how a club is operated that way. And maybe it's not him, but maybe there's someone else out there to do it. But that would be interesting because of the things that we've seen with culture in the NFL. It would be quite interesting to see that ownership in place and see how things change with that.
He is Vinnie Iyer, the Sporting News writer, covers the NFL and fantasy football. You can check out his podcast, Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. You can see it on his Twitter account at Vinnie Iyer. Vinnie, before we let you go, of course, the most important question: are you still alive in your fantasy football league?
I think I was eliminated last night. I think I had one more. I was alive. I think I needed Matt Ryan and Julio Jones to put together like 50 points. I don't think they got there last night. So I kind of didn't think it was going to happen. I thought the Falcons would run over the Buccaneers, and that's exactly what happened. So it was a good season. Usually come away with 1 or 2 titles, but feel pretty good about the way things worked out. Just a crazy season, I think, overall.
Vinny, always appreciate the time. Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year. We'll catch you on the flip side.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.